And good afternoon. It is Tuesday. It's Friday. It's noon. It's time for our regular lunch and learn. Now today we're going to be talking about protein and how protein affects our brains. So one of the things that we know, we've taught in school, we've taught the food pyramid and all that kind of stuff, and we've learned that that's not quite the way it is, right? And so we need to rethink how we're working with this. But we do know that protein is absolutely essential. And we were taught in grade school, I remember, that proteins are the building blocks for repair of your body. And so what we're talking about today is how proteins affect your mood, they affect your strength, they affect your cognitive ability, all that kind of thing. And I know as a human that when I do not have enough protein, I am not functioning at my best self. And so I've gone on different diets, I've done different things. And, our church, not every 21 days, in January, they do a 21-day Daniel fast. Now, this is found in the book of Daniel, in the Bible, and basically it is protein from your beans and your lentils and that kind of thing, and just other vegetables. So it's just a vegetable diet. I can't do that diet. When I have done that diet, and I think I have tried it twice, I'm very ratty. I have a bad attitude. I have no strength. I'm very cold, and cold not as in my emotions. I'm cold. My whole body is cold, and it's just, I suffer through that 21 days, and I know that fasting is all about all the spiritual disciplines and that kind of thing, but I don't think you have to be absolutely physically ill when you're trying to do a spiritual practice. And so some people, I'm one of them, I have to have protein in my diet for me to be my absolute best self. So we're going to be talking about proteins. We're going to talk about a case study of a man who was 45 years old. And he is a business expert, but he also had a degree in neuroscience and human behavior. So he found out that he was feeling just a lot of brain fog and lethargic, and he couldn't figure out what was going on. He noticed strange tingling in his hands. It made him very uneasy because he was a neuroscientist. And so what he found out was that he was significantly deficient in protein. All right. Don't know why. It doesn't say why, but it talks about the fact that he was deficient in protein and what proteins actually do. So proteins are not just essential for building muscle. From the earliest ages of development for our children, the proteins that we give them help them to develop their brain properly, and it helps them reach cognitive competence later on in life. And so we know children are growing. We know that they need to have a really good diet. And the amount of people that come in here and they feed their children and their grandchildren nothing but mac and cheese and chicken nuggets, people, that's just not cutting it. That's, chicken nuggets, from what I understand, can have all kinds of things in there, not just chicken. So I'm just saying, it's just one of those things that we don't necessarily want to do. All throughout our adulthood, proteins continue to facilitate cognitive brain function, critical brain processes such as neurotransmitter production, cellular signaling, neuroplasticity, and nerve cell repair. So let's talk about a few of those things, because these are some big words. You may know what they mean, you may not know what they mean. So critical brain processes. Now, we always think about our brain as being a computer, right? And it is. We've got all kinds of things going on in the brain that we need to be able to have the right nutrition so that it all works the way it is supposed to work. Neuroplasticity is that the brain can grow new cells, the brain can change the way it's functioning so that it can function at a higher level. Neurotransmitter production, your neurotransmitters help you with your sleep, with your hormone production, all that kind of thing. And so if you don't have the right nutrition, your brain is just not going to work right. And then cellular signaling, that's everything that's going on with the human body. So whether you're taking up your nutrition, you're taking those nutrients, you're changing them into enzymes, you're changing them into different chemical messengers, your body needs to have that cellular signaling in order to be able to do that properly. Nerve cell repair. As people get older, they have nervous disorders. If you're a diabetic, you've got nervous disorders with neuropathy and different things. And so if you don't have the right proteins in your cells, then you're going to have issues with that. So you can have something called subclinical protein deficiency. That means it's not going to show up on a blood test. It's not going to show up on a nutrition test, but it will show up as slow thinking. It's going to show up as reduced attention span, poor working memory, slower processing speed, overall impaired cognitive performance. Now, these are signs called executive dysfunction. Now, this is according to Timothy Fry, who is a neuronutritionalist and the founder of the National Academy of Neuronutrition. Nutrition for the brain. Research shows that protein deficiency early in life can lead to lower levels of key brain chemicals. Eating enough protein, on the other hand, has been linked to lower risk of developing subjective cognitive decline later in life. Protein provides amino acids, which are the building blocks of the neurotransmitters such as serotonin and dopamine, and also the neuromodulators, which are chemicals that help your body do all the things that it needs to do. So a lot of us don't eat quality protein. As I said earlier, this girl has to have protein. And my preferred protein is beef. I'm just going to throw that out there, right? I feel my best when I have a steak dinner. I just do. It has to do with my blood work. It has to do with the way that my cells use that protein. And so there are other ways. I know people have philosophical issues against meat and that kind of thing, and I'm not going to fight with you about that. There are other ways to get the proteins in. So one of them, this is a product. It's called Amino Sport, all right, and it's got all 21 amino acids in it. All right, so this is a very good product. We do use this product, but the thing I don't like about this product is the directions say to take 3 capsules 2 to 4 times a day. That's a lot. That's a lot of pills just to get your amino acids, right? Now, if you want to do that, we've got that for you. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to eat my steak dinner, okay? So all 21 amino acids are in here. This protein, a lot of us do protein powder. This protein has all the branched amino acids that you need, and it's in obviously it's a protein powder. It's my favorite flavor, chocolate, okay? It's powered by natural sugar, so you're not getting a whole lot of extra sugar. It's called TRME Go, and this is a protein that has a lot of amino acids in it so that you can get, and it's 100% balanced. So the scientists, and I'm not a scientist in that way, the scientists have taken all the macros of the amino acids and they put them in the right ratio so you're not over getting something and under getting something. And so that's really important. I like the protein powder. I like the way that it tastes. I like what it does with my body, and I know that I'm getting enough protein. We used to think that 35 grams of protein per day was enough. Now we're understanding, the new research has come out to show that you gram of protein per pound of body weight. All right. So then I'm going to need that many grams of protein. That's a lot of protein. All right. And so when you're doing a protein powder like that, that's a whole lot easier for me than taking this several times a day. So just throwing that out there. For whatever that means to you, you've got to have that protein because you don't want to have declining cognitive function. So they are from your brain as well. You need protein. They help all of your signaling do what it needs to do. It allows for communication. It allows for physical movement. it helps you think, and it helps you manage your emotions. So what happens to old people? They quit moving, right? They quit thinking. They develop dementia. They have problems with their emotions. Okay, now I know this can be all over the spectrum here, but what is going on with older people? They're not eating properly. Okay, so if they're not eating properly, what are they really gravitating towards? Well, they're gravitating towards the comfort foods. I know that my own mom, I love my mom. She's 87, and she is not wanting to eat the right kind of foods, and so we're kind of having some little issues with her because she's just wanting to eat what she wants to eat, which is no protein. So what are we seeing? Uncoordinated movements. We're seeing low cognitive processing, and we're seeing just a loss of executive function, and so we don't want to do that. So during digestion, your body breaks down the proteins into the amino acids, and research shows that the balance of these amino acids in our diet affect how well our neurotransmitters are produced and how they function. These are chemicals that regulate our mood, our motivation, our function, and our resilience to stress, according to Casey Shea, who is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, neuronutritionist, and a certified health coach. She says when we don't get enough protein, we risk harming our cognition, mental health, both short and long-term brain comfort. Okay, so for example, the tryptophan, we all know tryptophan. We think about it at Thanksgiving because turkey has a lot of tryptophan in it. When we eat tryptophan, it makes us sleepy. That's why everybody falls asleep after Thanksgiving dinner, because of the tryptophan. Now, the tryptophan is a protein that helps us make serotonin, which regulates mood and sleep. That's why it works that way. Researchers conducting an online study involving 482 participants found that those who ate more tryptophan-rich foods felt less depressed. They performed better on tasks measuring their ability to understand others' emotions. So they're very much more sympathetic and empathetic. Tryptophan also supports the production of melatonin, which is a hormone that helps regulate the wake-sleep cycle and promotes restful sleep. Now, I know there's a whole lot of people out there who want to and do supplement with melatonin, and I am not one of those. And the reason I'm not one of those is because you've got a flow chart of neurotransmitters, and melatonin is at the bottom, GABA is at the top, and then you've got your other ones slotted in there, and melatonin is at the bottom. If you feed from the top, it trickles down and you get enough melatonin. Okay, so I'm not a fan of supplementing with melatonin. I know that people do it. I'm not going to argue with you if you do it, but I'm going to supplement at the top. Another important amino acid is tyrosine. This helps with the production of dopamine and norepinephrine. Dopamine is involved in movement, pressure, and it's also part of the stress response. So when you consume the amino acid tyrosine, you're supporting the brain chemicals that make you excited to start your day, motivated to do your work, more sociable, more focused, and able to experience the desire and enjoyment of life. This is according to the neuronutritionist Fry, okay, Timothy Fry. What else does protein do? It helps you repair your cells. And so there are autoimmune diseases such as fibromyalgia and multiple sclerosis, and even chronic fatigue syndrome, I think, is a nerve disease, all right? So protein is a major building block of nerve cells. From the protective outer covering called melanin, okay, it sends signals, which are from the axons, to help the signals get from one to the other, okay? You've got to have those nerve cells in order to do that. Protein supplies the raw nutritional ingredients our brain needs to repair, adapt, and stay strong as we age. Neurodegeneration begins decades before diagnosis, and protein is a big player in that. And so as we get older, if we are picky eaters, we're not getting the right kind of protein, then those deficits start building up. And she says it can be decades later when you've got a neurological disease, which nobody wants that. I don't want that. The repair process happens through your amino acids, which the body uses to repair nerve fibers and rebuild lost connections. Scientific evidence shows that branched-chain amino acids found in protein may help protect the brain both before and after traumatic brain injury. Moreover, protein is stabilized. Okay, it is a stabilizing micronutrient that can help reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes, support insulin regulation, which may lower oxidative stress linked to chronic conditions like insulin resistance, diabetes, obesity, and all that kind of stuff. So we have been talking, a couple of weeks about M-Smart. Why is M-Smart important? Because M-Smart helps us balance our blood sugar. All right. If we don't have balanced blood sugar, we're not going to be able to repair our nerves. There's another product that we have that I absolutely love. Now, this is the one that I have on the shelf today, but I also have it in a liquid form. This is skullcap. Now, I love skullcap because skullcap is an herb that will rebuild your nerves. We have had people who have multiple sclerosis, and we have given them skullcap, and within 6 weeks, they were able to come off of their medication. Now, why is this? It's because we help the body rebuild the nerve sheath. Okay, so let me kind of back up a little bit. Think about my hand, my hand. This is your nerve, okay? My skin is the myelin sheath, okay? When we have nerve disorders, viruses, whatever, it burns off the skin. So think about what my hand would look like if I had no skin, right? It'd be bloody, it'd be tender, everything would hurt it. It would be, it's not a good thing. This is why God gave us skin, right? But when you have a nerve disorder, it burns off the myelin sheath, so your nerve is just on edge all the time. So skullcap rebuilds the skin on your nerve, and so it protects the nerve, so your body's just not on fire 100% of the time, which I absolutely love because I hate seeing people in pain, and I hate seeing people that just can't enjoy their life because they've got these nervous disorders and that kind of thing. So one of the most prevalent paths of neurodegeneration, so much so that Alzheimer's disease has been labeled type 3 diabetes. Why is that? Because the body is not able to process glucose properly in the brain, okay? The brain works on glucose. When it can't function, that's when we get the dementia, the Alzheimer's, all that kind of thing. And studies have found that when you give a patient with dementia, you give them, I think it's 3 tablespoons of coconut oil in a day. Okay, now coconut oil, you can cook with it. It's white. It's in the refrigerator, right? It's solid. So if you take a spoonful and you put it in the coffee, you take a spoonful, you cook the eggs in it, whatever, they have found, I think it's in 3 weeks that you can see significant improvement in dementia because the body can take the sugar, okay, I think it's medium chain fatty acids that is in the coconut oil. The body uses that as a fuel source instead of the glucose because it can't process the glucose. Because why? Because the brain's just not working right. And when you have diabetes, you can't process the glucose, right? Why? Because your pancreas isn't working right. So we need to make sure that we know these things so that we can supplement appropriately so we don't have these kind of things. It is said in the research that if our protein is adequate, we're not going to have those kind of things. Protein acts both as a building block and a buffer, supporting brain function and protecting it from stress, inflammation, and blood sugar swings that harm it over time. Now, I don't know about you, this has been a very stressful week, okay? This is our, yesterday was 9/11. We know what happened the day before that. It's just been a very, very stressful week in the United States. Maybe not the whole world, but in the United States. So if we do not have protein in our diet, if we don't have adequate protein, then we're not going to have what we need in our brain to buffer that stress. And we know that stress is an absolute killer, right? We know that. So we have to protect ourselves. And the way we do that is by making sure that we are nutritionally sound. This is another reason why I take these vitamins every day. Number one, they are micronized. I know there's a lot of them. I'm older. They're micronized so that I'm absolutely sure that my body absorbs them, okay, and my body has what it needs so I can protect myself from all the stress, right, that's going on in the world. So your myelin sheath is, when it's living, it's half protein and half fat. When it's damaged, okay, it's only fat. So you've got to have that protein so that everything is working the way it should. So what are some early signs of myelin sheath issues? Well, it can be tingling, it can be numbness, it can be muscle weakness, it can be delayed reflexes, it can be trouble with coordination and changes in gait, the way you walk, okay? Cognitive issues like poor memory, slow thinking, and difficulty with planning can also emerge, often suddenly, especially in the early ages. So if we have any of these things, tingling, numbness, we see that our walk has changed, we see that we're having trouble with coordination, then we want to think maybe I'm not getting the protein that I need. And so maybe we need to make some changes in the way we eat because we have been told, okay, that protein is not great for us, that carbs are what the body uses for energy. And yes, the body does use carbs, but they've got to be the good carbs, not the bread and the pasta, because there's no nutrition in that, at least here in the United States, okay? The central nervous system has a limited ability to regenerate, and certain amino acids help repair and maintain the myelin sheath. Now, that is true, but also as I showed you, the skull cap, we've had great results in repairing the myelin sheath for that. So if that's something that affects you, if you've got nerve issues, if you've got neuropathy, if you've got all those kind of things, you might want to try skull cap and see if that brings you some relief. So serine is an important amino acid, and it helps produce sphingolipids. Say that 3 times fast, right? These are major components of myelin. Low levels of serine have been linked to myelin damage in certain neurological disorders. Other amino acids such as glycine, cysteine, methionine, and arginine also support the maintenance of the myelin sheath. So we need to have this so that we can be our best self. We need to have our children have adequate, good, healthy protein so they develop those neuro connections that they need in order for them to be healthy. So your brain is always adapting. This flexibility is known, as I said earlier, neuroplasticity. This enables you to learn new things, form memories, recover from injuries, and keep your body running the way it is supposed to, all right? In a 2022 study published in Alzheimer's and Dementia, it has shown that proteins linked to neuroplasticity may help the brain stay more resilient in early Alzheimer's disease. Researchers examined the brain scans and spinal fluid protein levels in people with Alzheimer's and compared them with healthy people. They found that those with the stronger brain networks had higher levels of proteins, especially those involved in neuroplasticity. So we've got scientific studies that say protein helps us age well. Protein keeps us going in the right direction even as we are aging. And so there's a lot of misinformation out there that people are thinking that protein is bad for them, but it's not bad for you. You need protein in order for your brain to do what it needs to do. Neuroplasticity depends on constant communication between your brain cells, the reshaping of the connections called synapses, and even the growth of new ones. Now, when I was in school 100 years ago, they told us that once your brain was damaged, your brain is damaged forever. You did not grow new brain cells. Now, the new research has come out that says, no, that's not quite right. We can recover, our brain can repair itself and that kind of thing. So that's really, really good news. One of the things that I never did when I was young is I didn't do recreational drugs and that kind of thing because I want to keep my brain. I didn't want my brain to like spaz out and that kind of thing. You only have one. And so I want mine to last as long as it can. And so you have to have those proteins. Structural proteins support cell shape, and signaling proteins help neurons communicate. Any sort of nutritional insufficiency of amino acids can reduce synaptic protein turnover, impair dendritic remodeling, and impair long-term potentiation. Okay, what does this mean? This means your brain's not going to work right. So you have to have the right things. If you don't like meat, I'm okay with that. Do this, but do it enough times that you're going to get what you need. If you have a good protein powder, make sure that it has all the branch chain amino acids so that you have what you need, and make sure that you're having enough protein in a day based on your body weight. And if you're an athlete and you're lifting weights, or you're running marathons, or doing triathlons, or whatever that is, right? If you're one of those people, you need even more protein because that's what helps your body repair and do what it needs to do. So we tend to think of mental illness as a psychological issue requiring a psychological approach, but it is both your mind and your body. Anyone with anxiety can back this up. If you feel anxiousness everywhere, you feel it in your stomach, in your arms, it's not just in your mind. It is physiological in nature, requiring full physiological treatment. This is where nutrition is extremely valuable. Now, I will tell you, as a human, when I have anxiety, I get sick at my stomach. Okay, it is a very physical thing. You know, it is just something that if I get bad news or if I get anxious about something, I don't really have a panic attack, anything like that, but I will get nauseated and I will have to, take care of it however I need to take care of it. And so your stress, when your anxiety is out of control, it's going to affect you. And they have found in the studies that inadequate protein exacerbates anxiety issues. So your ability to manage stress, regulate your emotions, depend largely on your neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers made from amino acids. Your mental health is dependent on your diet having enough good amino acids that you've got that raw material to make those connections that you need to make in your brain. In a U.S. study, a large U.S. study, 18,000 adults, those who ate the most protein had a 66% lower risk of depressive symptoms compared with those who ate the least. Protein from milk and dairy products was especially linked to fewer symptoms in people with moderate to high intake groups. Now, if you're going to do milk, I want you to do organic milk because organic milk does not have the hormones and the antibiotics, all right? Commercial milk has hormones and antibiotics, so it increases cancer. It increases MRSA, which is antibiotic-resistant bacteria, because you're getting antibiotics in your food, and so we don't want to do that. That's why we do organic, okay? We do organic. So we have found, the research shows that if you start improving the quantity of your protein, you will start seeing the intensity of depression and anxiety lessen. So this is really, really important for people who deal with anxiety and depression and even attention deficit disorder. It could just be a protein issue because you don't have the right brain chemicals to keep you sane. All right. So we need to increase our protein consumption for our brain health. So you know who you are. I know who I am. And I told you at the beginning of this snippet here that when I don't have protein in my diet, I'm mean, I'm ugly, ratty, I'm cold, I have no energy, and my brain doesn't function. All right. I am a person that needs high levels of protein to be my best self. You might be that too. You may be operating under misinformation that you don't need protein to function. And so if you have any of those symptoms, brain fog, no motivation, high anxiety, tingling, numbness, all that kind of thing, it may be protein deficiency. So we've shown you a lot of solutions here. All right. And so if you need help, reach out. We're always able to advise over the phone. Brands do matter. Okay, so if you get a garbage brand, you're going to get garbage results. If you get a good brand, you're going to get good results. And so we want you to live your best life. That's why we do this. They're called Lunch and Learns, because you're having your lunch and hopefully you're learning something. So it is Friday. It is the beginning of the weekend. I'm getting ready to go and visit my mom because that's part of my Friday schedule, and I absolutely love it. It's the high point of my day. And then I'm going to take time to relax, recover, refresh, renew, all those things that are important for stress relief, okay, and moving forward and being our best selves when it comes back around on Monday and we have to do all the things we have to do. So thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for doing all the things. I appreciate you, and I will see you next week.